Hello everyone. In this session, we're going to walk you through the Excel workbook that is used to configure the leave structure of your company. The workbook has many sheets, and each one has a specific purpose for defining how leave policies and behaviors are managed in the system. We'll begin with the instruction sheet, which is your reference manual. This sheet explains how you need to fill in each section of the template. It also explains the input rules and shows any dependencies between the sheets. It lists which fields are mandatory and the formatting that's required for a successful upload. For a better understanding, you can refer to the Data Template Overview session. This explains how you can interpret the instruction sheet in a more effective way. Next, we will look at the Leave Type sheet. This is where you define all the different types of leave that your company offers, such as casual leave, sick leave, earned leave, and so on. For each leave type, you will configure things like the accrual method, entitlement units, carry-forward rules, encashment options, and eligibility. Each row you create will represent one leave type configuration. Let's cover the leave reason sheet. This is where you define valid reasons that employees can choose when applying for leave. For example, you might have reasons like medical, personal, vacation, or bereavement. Using standard leave reasons helps keep your reports and analytics consistent. We then move on to the leave overlapping exception sheet. This section lets you define the rules for when two or more types of leave might overlap. For example, it defines how the system should act if a compensatory off and a sick leave are requested for the same period. Here, you specify which combinations are allowed or restricted based on your company's policies. You will also find the list reference sheet. This sheet includes standardized drop-down values and codes that are used in the other sheets. These references help to keep everything consistent, reduce manual errors, and make data entry faster. By the end of this session, you'll understand how to fill in every sheet in the leave configuration data template. This will let you set up your company's leave structure correctly and efficiently. Let's begin with the leave type sheet. This is the one used to define all the different types of leave that are available in your company. Each row in this sheet is one leave type configuration. We're going to go through the key columns using Sonic Venture as our example. First, you need to enter the organization name. For example, Sonic Venture. If you have more than one organization, and the same leave type applies to all of them, you just have to enter a star in the organization column. This means the leave type is a common one and applies to all organizations. For leave type, you need to define the name of the leave, for example, annual leave, medical leave, or unpaid leave. For category, you will select paid or unpaid from the drop-down. For instance, annual leave and medical leave are marked as paid, while unpaid leave is categorized as unpaid. This setting impacts how the leave will affect payroll. Unpaid leave will result in a salary deduction, but paid leave will not. The accrual plan field is where you indicate whether this type of leave is earned over a period of time. The only options are yes and no. For example, if employees earn 1.5 days of annual leave each month, then the accrual plan should be marked as yes. But if all 18 days of leave are given up front at the start of the year, then you should mark it as number. This setting defines how leave balances grow or are assigned. The Allow Leave Overlap field should be set to yes if the system should allow this type of leave to overlap with other leaves that have already been applied for. For example, if an employee applies for medical leave and also adds annual leave for the same time period and your policy allows it, then this field should be marked as yes. Otherwise, use no to stop the overlap from happening. For half-day applicable, you specify whether employees are able to take a half-day leave for this type. You should use Y for yes and N for no. For negative leave allowed, you should use a Y if employees are allowed to apply for a leave even when they do not have enough in their balance. This will allow the balance to go negative. If this is not allowed, you should select N. Now we are on Exclude Holiday or Week Off. You should enter Y if the system should not count holidays and weekends from the leave period. For example, if someone applies for leave from Friday to Monday, and Sunday is a week off, that day will not be counted if you mark this field with a Y. For carried over, you should mark Y if the remaining balance at the end of the year is allowed to be carried forward. For example, annual leave is often allowed to be carried over, so you would mark it as Y. For sick leave that resets every year, you may mark it as N. The leave balances refers to how many days of leave are given to an employee at the beginning of the year. For example, annual leave could have a starting balance of 18 days. You have to fill in these values carefully based on your company's leave policies. This sheet directly controls how leave is calculated, tracked, and integrated with payroll. Now let's move on to the leave reason sheet. This sheet defines the valid reasons that employees can select when they are applying for leave. This helps categorize leave requests and keeps reporting clear. There are 3 main columns on this sheet, and they are organization, leave type, and name. For organization, the name has to be an exact match to the name mentioned in the leave type sheet. The same goes for leave type. This must also match exactly with the leave type that you defined earlier in the leave type sheet. It is very important that you make sure there are no spelling mistakes, extra spaces, or differences in the letter case. Even a small mismatch can cause errors when you upload the data, as the system needs exact text to match between the sheets. For name, this is where you define the reason for leave. For example, you could have vacation, family function, or sick. Let's take an example to understand this better. For the company Sonic Venture, suppose we have a couple of leave types already defined in the leave type sheet. We have annual leave and medical leave. Now we want to assign multiple reasons for each type of leave. Here is how you can do that. For annual leave, you're going to create 3 separate rows with the same organization and leave type. The reasons will be different: vacation, family function, and personal work. For medical leave, you're going to create 2 separate rows, and they are sick and fracture. In the same way, you can define as many reasons for leave as you need for any other leave types you have set up. Using reasons that are standard and specific helps with better tracking, auditing, and analysis of leave trends across different departments and time periods. Next, let's move on to the leave overlapping exception sheet. This sheet defines the rules for when leave types overlap, which is when more than one type of leave is applied for the same period. It ensures that exceptions are handled based on your company's leave policies. There are 3 columns in this sheet: organization, leave type, and exception leave. For organization, the name has to be the same as the name you entered in the leave type sheet. The same goes for the leave type. This also has to be an exact match to the leave type that you defined earlier. Just like with the leave reason sheet, you need to make sure there are no spelling errors or extra spaces. If there are, the data upload will fail. For exception leave, this is where you define which other type of leave is allowed to overlap with the main leave type that you put in the leave type column. Let's understand this with an example. Suppose an employee is on annual leave but they get sick during that time. Your company's policy might allow them to apply for medical leave for that period. In this case, you would use leave type as annual leave and exception leave as medical leave. This tells the system that if an employee is already on annual leave, they are still able to apply for medical leave over the same dates, and the system will not stop it. You can define as many exceptions as you need by creating separate rows for each combination that is valid. These settings are helpful in cases where overlapping leaves are allowed due to genuine situations. They also ensure that leave requests are not unnecessarily rejected by the system. By following the structure and rules we've gone over in this session, you'll be able to complete and upload your leave configuration data template correctly and efficiently. Thank you for attending.